What does it mean by cost behavior? How the cost will be affected by the level of change in activity? What does it mean by fixed costs and variable costs? And what is the reaction of these costs with the change in the level of activity? If you would like to know more, continue till end of the video with us. This is Milad Akbari from Akbari Education. Today we're gonna cover the cost behavior, especially the fixed cost and the variable cost, and how they react to the change to the level of activity. Let's go what is in this video. In this video we're gonna cover the fixed cost and variable cost. Let's go in detail. We have the cost classification by behavior. What does it mean by that? Cost behavior is the way in which costs are affected by changes in the volume of output. What does it mean? How the cost will go up and down with the change in the level of activity. When I produce one unit, what is the cost? When I produce the second unit, now what is the total cost? The third unit, what is the total cost? The fourth unit. And how the level of activity change will have an effect on the cost. This is called the cost behavior. The change in cost due to change in level of activity will affect the management decision. He will decide about the selling price. He will plan about an activity, whether he should do it or not, whether I should do it internally, manufacture it internally, or I should go out and produce it outside, means outsource that. This change in level of activity and change in level of cost are interrelated and will affect the management decision. So why we need the cost classification by behavior? Of course, there are management actions, three of them, which is planning, decision making, and controlling. These changes and interrelations between them will affect that. The planning, the decision making, and controlling. Here is a link. What does it mean by them? Here is a link I put for you. You can go to that as the name of management information and management actions. You can go and review in detail what they mean. But still, if I say to my manager that there will be that much change in the cost if our level of activity go down or up, then he can plan. He can decide about the alternative, whether I should go for outsourcing that product or I should make it internally, or even with the controlling. Okay, with the passage of the time, we have manufactured 100 units of that. When we reach to 100 units, this is our level of cost. Our fixed cost is this much and our variable cost is this much. Now they will control. And they will decide whether to go upward, what reactions are needed, what corrective actions even needed to make the process better. Let's go further with the types of cost behavior. We have 4 types of cost behavior. The first one is the fixed cost, second variable cost, step fixed cost, and semi-variable cost. 2 of them will be covered here, and for rest 2, here is a link. Go to this one and that will be covered there. And for the fixed cost and variable cost, we will have the definition, an example, and as always a practice question. Let's go in detail. What is fixed cost? Is a cost which tends to be unaffected by increase or decrease in the level of activity. What does it mean? A cost which will stand the same, fixed, when my level of activity go down or up. This is called fixed cost. For example, rent of a classroom, it will stay the same monthly basis. It will be fixed whether you have 1 student, 2 student, 3 student, 50 student, or 100 student. You will pay the same amount for this classroom. So in brief, we can say fixed costs in total remain unaffected by increase or decrease in level of activity. What does it mean? If I have 1 student, I need to pay the monthly rent, a fixed amount. 2, 3, the same amount. 50, 100, the same amount. But what will happen? The per unit cost will decrease. How it is? Let's go to an example. Here is an example. It said draw a table for monthly $1,000 fixed rent of a classroom with below number of students and maximum capacity of 50 students. So what we're gonna do, we will draw a table to cover both the total and per unit basis for 1 student, 2, 5, 10, and 50. The capacity of this class is 50. Of course, the capacity is limited and it will shift to new class. That's a step fixed cost. I told you there is another video about that. You can cover it there. But let me go with drawing table for that. The per unit number of units which is required is 1 student, 2 students, 5, 10, and 50. 5, 10, and 50. 50 number of students are available, but what is the cost per month? The per month cost is still per month rent is still $1,000. If the number increased to 2, still I pay for $1,000. It's 5 number of students available in the class, still $1,000. For the 10, still $1,000. For the 50, still $1,000. So in total, there is no change. But what about the per unit? The per unit cost, how it will be affected? The per unit cost, if I have 1 student in the class and I pay $1,000 for that guy, for the room. So $1,000 divided by 1 student will be 1,000. $1,000 divided by 2 students, it will be $500. $1,000 divided by 5 students, it will be $200. $1,000 divided by 10, $100. $1,000 divided by 50, it will be $20. So you can see here, when the level of activity increase, the cost per unit will decrease. What does it mean? My level of activity means number of students increase, the cost per unit will decrease. This is the relationship you need to remember. That's very beneficial. But when the level of activity increase, my cost in total will stay at $1,000 without any change. This is the relationship of the fixed cost. And you can see here the table. Let's go further. Here is the graph. You can see the graph below the screen. One of them is for 1 unit basis or cost per unit, and one is for total cost. Let me draw that for you here. Suppose this is my graph and this is my level of activity. I have produced 1, I have produced 2, I have produced, suppose 5, I have produced 10, I have produced 50. But what is the change in my level of cost? Still $1,000 is my cost. So this is it. Again, this is the same. Again, this is the same. So the level of cost will stay fixed. Whatsoever change is there in level of activity, but up to a range. Up to a range is very important, because of course the capacity of this class is not that much big to have 1,000 students in itself. So the fixed cost in total will remain the same. Let me go to the graph of per unit basis. Suppose this is the graph and I'm producing 1 unit, 2 unit, 5 unit, 10 unit and 50 unit. What is the cost when I have one student in the class? $1,000. Suppose this is $1,000. What is the cost when I have two students? $500. Suppose this is $500. Let me draw that. This is the point. This is the point. When I have 5 students, my cost will be around $200. $200 is supposed to be here. $200. And this is it. This is the bullet point. And for 10 students, my cost will be $100. This is it. $100. So it will reach here. This is the point. And suppose the cost will be $20 when I have 50 students. Here it is $20. Here it is. So you can go ahead. This is the point. If you draw that, the line will be a curve. This curve means that my cost per unit will decrease when the level of activity increase. These both graphs are in a clear way, and a better picture are shown below to you here in the screen, so you can see it there. But this is clearly an introduction to that and a brief explanation of that. As always, we have the practice question. The practice question said pick up the correct answer. Here is a graph and 4 options given to you. Read them and pick up the right answer, the correct one. The graph is on per unit cost, and the options are direct material cost per unit. It is a type of variable cost, direct material, the material you have used directly in the product. We will have very soon another video on that. Be with the channel. It will be described well with practice question and examples. What is direct material? Same for direct labor and variable production cost as well. So direct labor is a type of variable cost also on per unit basis. Variable production cost per unit, it's variable cost. In next few minutes of the video we will go to the variable costs, but the last option is fixed production cost per unit. I recommend pause the video, read the question once again, think about it deeply, and reply me, answer to yourself even, that which one is the correct one. But by the way, let's continue here in the video. From the 4 options, we can see rest of them are variable cost per unit, and variable cost per unit will act differently. We will come to that. And the only option, if you can see here from the graph, that the fixed cost per unit will decrease like a curve when the level of activity increase. This is the point we have covered, and the graph shown to you is exactly the same. So the right answer is option D. Wow, here is the variable cost. Variable cost is a cost which varies directly with the level of activity. It will be changing with the level of activity. What does it mean? Suppose per hour lecture fee. A teacher is in the class and he is receiving his fee or his salary per hour of teaching. So when he teach 1 hour, suppose he is receiving $10. For the 2 hour, 2 multiplied by 10 will be $20. 3 hour, 3 multiplied by $10, $30. When the level of activity increase, the cost in total will also increase. What is the reaction of them? Variable cost in total increases in direct proportion as the level of activity increase. Here you can see 10, 20, $30, and the level of activity in this side 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour in direct proportion with the level of activity, the cost increase. But what about variable cost per unit, which remains the same for each unit produced? What was the cost per unit when I taught 1 hour? It was $10. But what about 2 hours? It was in total $20, but still the same $10 per hour. What about 3 hours? $30 in total, but the per hour cost was still $10. Let me go with an example. It will clarify much more better for you. The example says, draw a table for $10 per hour lecture fee of a teacher with below number of hours taught. We will cover the both total and per unit basis for 1 hour, 2 hour, 15 hour, 20 hour, and 50 hours. Let me erase the board. I believe doing it by table will help you much more better. Let me go for the level of activity first of all. Second, we can go for the per unit basis cost, and third one for the total. Level of activity, let me go as the name of units. They said he taught 1 hour, 2 hour, 15, 20, and 50. 15, 20, and 50. What is the lecture fee per hour? Fee per hour is about $10. $10. $10. Still $10. $10 for 1 hour. But if I teach 1 hour, what is my total cost? The total 1 multiplied by 10, $10. What about 2 hours? 2 multiplied by 10, $20. 15 multiplied by 10, $150. 20 multiplied by 10, $200. And 10 multiplied by 50, $500. So calculation is easy, but what does it mean? You can check here. When my level of activity increased from 1 to 50 in direct proportion, my total cost also increased from $10 to $500 in total. But my per unit cost will stay the same. It will end up the same. The graphs of this will be here and bottom of the screen. You can see one of them is with a trend which change with the level of activity. One of them will stay the same. Let me draw it on the board. Here it is. Suppose my level of activity is 1, 2, 15, 20, and 50. What is the change in level of cost in total cost? For 1 unit, here it is $10. For 2 units, 2 hours of lecture, here it will be $20, $10, $20. Let me write some of them. When it reached to 15 hours, my cost will reach to $150. And when it reached to 20, my cost will reach to $200. And the same, it will reach to $500. If I draw some of them even, you can see here. These points, if I connect them, my cost in total will increase. This is the graph. By increasing level of activity, my total cost will also increase. The graph shown to you. This is for total cost. But what about the per unit cost? Let me do it in separate graph. Suppose again we have the graph and my level of activity is still 1, 2, 15, 20, 2, 15, 20, and the last one 50. What is the cost per unit? I'm not hearing well. Is it 50? Okay. No. Is it 50? Of course not. It is 10. The $10 is the cost per unit. Let me continue. Here it is, the connection point. For the next one, here it is, the connection point. For this one, here it is, the connection point. If you join them all, this will stay fixed on per unit basis. And here is the table. The $10 will stay the same when the level of activity increase or decrease. This is the whole story of variable cost. Let's us go with a practice question as always. And the practice question said, which of the following is not correct? Check the graph shown to you. It's on cost per unit basis and we have the 4 options: direct material cost per unit, direct labor cost per unit, fixed production cost per unit, variable production cost per unit. Remember, direct material, direct labor, and variable production costs are all variable costs, and the only difference is fixed production cost per unit. And remember the question, what it said to you, which of the following is not correct? Remember the not. Now read the question carefully, pause the video, think about that, and find the answer. Else we need to continue with the video. Which of the following is not? Of course, here is the graph. It said the cost per unit will stay constant when the level of activity decrease or increase. In where? In variable cost per unit. When the 3 of them, direct labor, direct material, and variable costs, are all the variable costs per unit, it means they will stay constant. So which of them are not correct? Which of them is not correct? Of course, option C. Option C is the fixed production cost per unit, and I showed to you the graph earlier in this video. It will be a curve. When the level of activity increase, the cost per unit will decrease. Thank you so much for being with us till end of this video. Hey guys, subscribe to this channel and press the notification button and share this video and share this channel with your friends. Our goal is to grow all together, and you're sharing, you're subscribing, liking, commenting, and everything will help us and the whole community of youths to grow together and enjoy. Thank you.